Well, hello everybody, this is Tim Green with Rattle Magazine. Welcome to your critique of the week for Friday, January 15th. Thanks so much for joining me. Always a nice way to break up the day a little bit by going over some poems live on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, and Twitter. Today's a special day at Rattle, I should tell everybody before we begin. Today is the deadline for both the Rattle Chapbook Prize. Actually, I have a little thing, the Rattle Chapbook Prize. It's the deadline for the Tribute to Appalachian Poets, and it's the deadline for Poet Respond, of course, 'cause it's a Friday. And Submittable was having problems earlier on keeping up with, it was a busy day for them, and a lot of people had deadlines today, and I guess they had some server problems this morning for a while. And so people were having trouble making their submissions. So we've extended the deadlines thusly. So Poet Respond deadline is tonight. It still has to be tonight because I have to come up with a poem for Sunday. The Appalachian Tribute Poets deadline is now tomorrow night, Saturday, the 16th. And the Rattle Chapbook Prize deadline is now Sunday, the 17th. So we kind of spread them out to make sure everybody can get their submissions in and the servers can keep up. All right, so today, for the critique of the week, we're going to be looking at a poem. We just have one. It's a short poem by Kate Morgan. I asked if she could send another, and then she tried to, and there was some kind of technical difficulties, and I'm not sure. It hadn't been resolved, so we will just do one short poem, and then maybe we can have some. If anybody has any questions, or maybe if you want to have your own short poem, maybe we could talk about a certain poem a little bit, or talk about anything you want if you'd like to. So we'll get to do this, and then we'll do whatever to fill up a little bit extra time if anybody wants to. Have a look. This is Kate Morgan. And as always, the point of these is to sit around and offer your feedback so that we can have that workshopping experience that is really valuable for all writers, both being on the giving and the receiving end of critiques. So leave your comments in the chat windows, and let's get started. Here is today's poem. Let me fix this a little bit. This is The Thing with Feathers, The Thing with Feathers. And the poet is Kate Morgan. Okay. This is a little tilted. There we go. That's better. Hang on a second. It's on autofocus. I hate autofocus. Bear with me 1 second while I switch this to manual so it doesn't go out of focus as we write on the page. Auto. Every time I restart my computer, it switches back to autofocus. There we go. Okay, so The Thing with Feathers by Kate Morgan. A ray of light dissipates the darkness of night amid the barren branches of winter-ravaged trees. It reaches a bud, struggling to blossom. It succeeds, proving the morning light can outlive the sorrow of what is lost, but lives in memory. So that is The Thing with Feathers. And of course, when I see The Thing of Feathers, I imagine it's hope because of that quote. The Thing with Feathers, a ray of light dissipates the darkness of night. So already we're getting into sort of some abstraction, which is really the reason why this poem, it's hard to connect with something where you don't have tangible, concrete things to like feel like you're connected to. And so we have a ray of light dissipates the darkness of night. So we have just a ray, we have one sort of beam of light on a blank page. Then we have amid the barren branches of winter-ravaged trees. So then we get some trees, but we don't know who's here. We don't really know like why it matters. So we're sort of setting the scene a little bit, but it's a very sort of abstract, kind of vague scene that we're not getting a lot of emotional weight for. It reaches a bud, struggling to blossom. It succeeds. So it's like the first ray encourages this blossom to bud, or the bud to blossom, I should say, proving the morning light can outlive the sorrow of what is lost, but lives in memory. Proving the morning light can outlive the sorrow of what is lost, but lives in memory. It's interesting. I don't know, it's at least complicated to kind of wrap your head around that. Proving the morning light can outlive. So how does the morning light outliving the sorrow of what is lost, but lives in memory? So the light, I guess the memory of night continues, the memory of not being budded. Am I reading that right? And the sorrow, I don't know. I'm really having trouble sort of piecing this together. It's interesting though, because at least it makes you think, which is a good thing. But so, we always talk about this in these poems, but it's sort of important to be a journalist a lot of times. If a poem isn't connecting, at least is the way it's working right now, then there's who, what, why, where, when. And the more of these you can answer, the more that we can connect to it, and then we can feel the emotional power of what's being written. So we don't really have a who here. We do have a what, because we have the light and the darkness and the interplay and the branches and the trees. So there's a little bit of a scene. So we have a little bit of what. We don't really get any why. We don't get any where, when, or who. So all we have is this what, kind of. And it's really hard to connect to a poem that doesn't give you that kind of information. It's possible. Some poems are written in a way that makes it work like that are very distant and sort of, just put out just images, and then the images can speak. But it's really hard to do that, and really rare that it works. So for here, I would like to know more. Just more about what this is really about. So I don't know. So answer these questions for us. Maybe with more of a longer poem. I think that you get a sense that there's a real feeling and an importance behind the poem, that there's something there that's meaningful, but it's hard to know what. Like, we're sort of just lost. We're drifting in a sea of infinite possibilities, sort of imagining what the poem could do. So the main thing I can say, really the only thing I can say, is get that, situate us within the poem. Let us know what it's really about, and then we can feel along too. Because if you don't have a container kind of to put an emotion inside, it isn't stored. It isn't transferred. So you need to know a little bit more about what's going on. Let's see if we can talk about just any kind of, the sounds in the line choices and things like that. So a ray of light dissipates the darkness of night. We have the rhyme there is nice. The line break is nice. There's a sense of rhythm in this poem that works. Amid the barren branches, there's the alliteration. There's some music in this of winter ravaged trees. I think there should be a hyphen in winter ravaged. But it would, if it went more, if it let us know more about what was going on, this would be a good setup for if like a character entered, or if the situation entered, if we knew a little bit more about what was going on instead of just another bud, which is just another image. But it reaches a bud struggling to blossom. It succeeds. So the light's reaching the bud. And then also the it succeeds. So we're still talking about the light. So we're sort of giving meaning to, or motivation to the light there. Proving the morning light can outlive the sorrow of what is lost, but lives in memory. So I think people, probably everybody watching home, I haven't looked at the comments yet, but I think everybody watching home probably feels that there's a weight behind this, that there's a meaning. Like, you can tell that there's an emotion underlying this sort of abstraction, which is what, and so since it's abstract, it's not connecting, but you can feel that there's something there. So, I don't know. So that's the first step, I guess I could say. Let's see what everybody else is saying. Hello to Sharon Ferrante and Susan Michelle Cornell and Robin Delabo. Hello, everybody. Yeah, thanks so much for joining. So if anybody wants to send a short poem, we'll look at another poem or two. So if you have a short poem, we have a lot of time. So if anybody wants to email a poem to, let's use openmic@rattle.com, the usual email address here, openmic@rattle.com. And we can look at some other poems too. Why don't we do that? So just send a poem now if you have one handy, and then we'll look at a couple others too. Just really quick though. We'll do like a little brief lightning round for what we have. Let's see. Okay. So if you want to do that, go ahead and do so. But let's see what the comments here on this poem. We're still talking about the thing with feathers. So Aaron Cloyd says, I get somewhat confused with the last two lines for some reason. Because the thing is that the way that's set up, that the darkness of the night or the coldness that wouldn't allow the bud to blossom doesn't really seem like something that you'd have sorrow for, which is what is confusing to me about the last two lines. So why is that? Why is there a sorrow for having lost that? Maybe it's like lost the last year before the winter ravaged the trees. I don't know, but it's kind of a stretch. And it's just so abstract that it's hard to know what it's really about. Catherine Swanson says a bit more of statements that I'm comfortable with. Of statements. So we have the of here. And the ray of light and the darkness of night. So that is a syntactical repetition. Let's see. The thing with feathers, says Mark A. Grenier, a bird. The flower bud becomes a flower, the morning light. Let's see. So Lisa Ellison says it needs more specifics. It's good that it gives the reader their own room to be part of the poem, but it needs something we can connect to first. Yeah. So T.R. Paulson says, I like the simple branch, light image. For me, the poem is saying there's hope even in apparent barrenness, but I do want more to ground me. Why not try a different rhyme to begin the poem? See what that does. Light night is an overused rhyme. Yeah, for sure that is. That's a good point, though, about this image of the branch is interesting, too, just by itself. I mean, another thing, we're talking about how we want to know more of the background so we can connect more. But you can get away in a really, really hyper short poem, like a haiku-ish type poem. You could get by with just that image and then another image to sort of, counterbalance it. So there's a way maybe you could probably write a pretty good haiku just based on this poem here. We could have just between the tree and the bud or something like that. You could use those images in a way that would work if it was that short. Robin Delabo says the thing with feathers is a direct reference to the Dickinson poem about hope. The poet is conscious of imitating Dickinson. Yeah, that's the impression I got. Let's see. So Sharon Fronte says it seems to be about the change of seasons. Mark A. Grenier says this poem is trying to be symbolic, I think, but the meaning of the symbols is so personal that it's indecipherable for me. Nice images, nice rhythms and sounds, but it needs more. Yeah, this I wrote an essay one time for, I think, Writer's Digest or something, about the difference between public and private poetry, which is a distinction I tend to make. Because we get, in the submissions a lot, we receive a lot of poems that I would just call private poetry, which has a lot of meaning for the people who know the situation already. But when you publish, you have to have all the information, the context has to be included in the poem, or else we just don't get it. And so a poem like this could have a lot of personal meaning for the poet, or it could have a lot of personal meaning for the, somebody that the poet is giving it to or wants to read it, like that kind of thing. It can be very functional and be great for that purpose. But there's a difference between that and a public, a stranger, an audience that just doesn't know the background details and doesn't know how to connect the story. It's possible in a series of poems to have poems like this that tell a story very gradually, and so the poems relate to each other one after another in a way. I mean, Rupi Kaur's book kind of does that. Everything is very abstract and distant, but then eventually you end up with a story and meaning through the long sequence of poems. So it could be something like that. But for but for a public audience that doesn't know anything about the situation, we need more, whether it's more poems or more information within this poem, I think. Let's see. Anna Yin says, I like the first stanza. The email address, Robin Delabo, is openmic, openmic, @rattle.com. It's openmic @rattle.com. So send a short poem there, and we'll look at a couple short poems. So Caitlin Bucksbaum sent a couple. Yeah, and so what I want to emphasize, though, and what I did in that essay I was talking about, was that there's nothing wrong with private poems. To me, one of the main things that we're doing with poetry is making sense of our own lives and sort of ordering the chaos of human existence, and you can do that in the same way a journal can be very important in bringing back memories and finding ways to articulate feelings and getting them down and outside into like a container. They can be really functional and they have a lot to offer. It's not like you shouldn't write poems like that. It's just that they don't work for an audience that doesn't know the situation. Okay, so a few people. Oh, we have a bunch of them. Okay, so let us see. I think I will. Let's see. Yeah, so we got a bunch of people who sent poems in. Let me look through. How should we do this? Yeah, I didn't plan on how to fill up this time ahead of time. I didn't realize I only had one short poem until a few minutes before we went on air. Let us do. I think what I'll do, I'll just put them in a Word doc as people, or open the file, and we can just talk about them. I think that's what we'll do. So this is the first one I'm going to pop up here is Canon McAfee with Evil, and let's take a look. Let's take a look at that. It might take a second for me to shuffle around the files. Oh, there it goes. It didn't take long at all. Okay, this is Evil, and this is Canon McAfee. I think it's two N's. Yeah. Okay, so let's look at this. This is Evil. It's a darkness in the eye that sees malice in every shadow, denial in the heart of what lies there behind its closed door. It casts its spell through every finger pointing blame away. It begins as soon as we begin to separate power from love. So this is another abstract poem, sort of similar to the one we were looking at, the thing with feathers. We have, let's see. So it's a darkness in the eye that sees malice in every shadow. So I really like the opening. I'm not going to be able to write down this. I'm not going to, because my printer's really loud. I don't want to have to print stuff out. But it's a darkness in the eye that sees malice in every shadow. I like that first line. So we get, we get actually a complicated concept here in this first stanza. The fact that it's the darkness of the viewer that sees the malice everywhere is an interesting way to start out. And it does it in a visual way that places us within the poem. So that works. Denial in the heart of what lies there behind its own closed door. It casts its spell through every finger pointing blame away. It begins as soon as we begin to separate power from love. So then as the poem drifts, as the poem continues, I sort of feel like my attention drifts. And it's because it gets a little less concrete as we go, and it gets more abstract, like we were talking about with the other poem. So denial in the heart of what lies there behind its own closed door. So we get the closed door image, but the denial in the heart of what lies there, I guess that is the every shadow. Like it's hard to know where like what the there is. So that's why it starts to feel a little like untangible, and then you start to, my mind starts to wander a little as poems get that way. It casts its spell through every finger pointing blame away. So I guess this is the evil, is the it. And is the evil what lies there? It casts its spell through every finger-pointing blame away. It begins as soon as we begin to separate power from love. So I like this, again, I like this ending concept. And I like the beginning here, because those are both interesting enough to sort of carry just interest in the poem. It's these middle two sections that I feel like are a little, they're just too abstract for me to connect to. And similar to the poem we looked at first. Let me see. So Mary Dean Carter says, interesting opening. Yeah, that's what I like the most. Interesting evil is projected from inside. Yeah, that's an interesting concept. I think that's, okay, Leanne Seaver says McAfee's poem might be helpful by staying in I mode, not cast its spell, but filter, lens. Yeah, if it focused on the eye and like what the eye was doing, and use that to like sort of extend this metaphor out, I think that would be a better way to explore the interesting concepts that are in that opening. Because I think the opening, the first two lines are the best part of this, in my opinion. Let's see. Okay, let's try another poem. Let's just kind of move through some poems and see what we can do in the next like 15 or 20 minutes. Let's look at a short poem by Joyce Stahl. It's a very short poem here. This is Tumbleweed. Ready? Here we go. Here. There we go. Tumbleweed was once alive, growing and vibrant, dried, free on the wind. So this is a haiku-ish kind of poem, and I like the concept of it. The tumbleweed was once alive. I think that's a really good first line. And then the contrast to be free now on the wind is interesting too. So I wonder, the growing and vibrant, again, is a little vague. I think maybe the issue with a lot of short poems is a tendency to be vague, to get sort of bigger concepts in. But I think Tumbleweed was once alive contains growing and vibrant already. We kind of don't need to know that. And so maybe getting rid of this. And that kind of works as a short poem. Let me see what everybody else thinks about this one. So Caitlin Buxbaum says, I think you could leave out oops. Let's see. So I'm going to have to figure out how to do this so you can still see the poem instead of having these mountains of nested windows. So Carlton Jem says, I like the indents in the poem, in the Tumbleweed poem. Let's see. And again says, Tim, you didn't show the poem here. Could you not see it on the screen as I was, I thought you could. Why not write it? Okay, so Caitlin Buxbaum suggests tumbleweed, once alive, dried, free on the wind. I really like that concept of how the tumbleweed is sort of more free when it's dead. I think that's a really cool, juxtaposition. And we have a lot of tumbleweeds around down in the desert, and it fits too. Let's see. I find once was awkward as well, and favor was once, as you've been saying. I was just switching that. Yeah. Okay. Well, that's some suggestions for that one. Thanks for sharing that, Joyce Stahl. Let's see. Let's do a quick poem by Vicky Miko. She suggests the Circus with No Audience poem. So let's see what we would say about her Circus with No Audience. It was the critique, the prompt poem for last week. So let me paste this over here. Then I can keep up the thing and talk at the same time. And that's Vicky Miko. Okay, well look at this by Vicky. A Circus with No Audience. Oops. There we go. A Circus with No Audience by Vicky Miko. Where elephants flaunt spangled flanks, and acrobats step off high planks, A ring that isn't there vanished in midair. All souls play foolish pranks. A circus with no audience. Ladies and gents sit on the fence. If nothing exists, is a conscious twist. What's relative nonsense? Into the zen, the audience with no circus. That's interesting. I wonder what form this is. It feels kind of like a, sort of a limericky a little bit, or I don't know, Vicky. I think you're here. So, well, obviously you're here. So, what form was this? Let's see. Yeah. So let's go through a little bit. Line by line. So what is this? Where elephants flaunt? I'm trying to count the feet and things. Where elephants flaunt spangled flanks, and acrobats step off high planks. So we got that rhyme in there. It feels like it's syllabic. A ring that isn't there, vanished in midair. All souls play foolish pranks. So here, I like the first, I wonder if this could stand alone. Where elephants flaunt spangled flanks, and acrobats step off high planks. A ring that isn't there, vanished in midair. All souls play foolish pranks. That sort of tells a whole story. A circus with no audience. And then you could make like the Zen part, the title maybe. Sort of add it all up together. A circus with no audience, ladies and gents sit on the fence. If nothing exists, as a conscious twist, what relative nonsense? Into the Zen, the audience with no circus. So I feel, for me, I feel like this poem is sort of disconnected from itself. So, it feels like this, it could continue from here to tell more of this story, but instead it sort of jumps off, and this second, each stanza feels like it exists in a different space almost. The tone changes a little bit, and I don't know. I think the first one's the best, and maybe extending that a little bit more and playing with that would be helpful. Let me see what other people say about this one. Love the idea of moving Zen into the title, says Aaron Cloyd. AABBA rhyme scheme in 2 stanzas with a short envoy at the end is what. Yeah, that's definitely the rhyme scheme, but is it syllabic? Is it like a mangled flanks? It's like 8, an acrobat step off high plank. So the first 2 are 8 syllables. A ring that isn't there, vanished in mid-air. I guess not, because that's 6/5. Let's see. Mark A. Grinner asked why the space in the last line of stanza 1. That's another thing that makes it feel like each stanza is a different poem, almost, because it has this, which I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It's to add a little bit of pause as you're reading, which is a reason why some people add spaces like that. And just to break it off, it's sort of like a half of a line break, like it's not as strong of a break as a line break, but it's a mini line break. But none of the other 2 stanzas have that. So that's another reason why it felt like 2 different sections of poems, Lisa Allison says feels sardonic, which I like. It's a limerick form for sure. Almost a limerick. Yeah, that's the thing. It's a little off for a limerick. And I'm just confused as to what it was. Let me switch over to YouTube. It's a cloggerknock. Okay. So Sophie Miko says a cloggerknock, which is there was another prompt. So she combined a few of our prompt poems from the Rattlecast. Kenan McAfee says, circus, the key line to me seems to be ladies and gents sit on the fence. It seems to suggest more than what the poem started out as. Yeah. I don't know. I think that definitely, that feels sort of like it fits with the first. It doesn't feel as dissected out as the rest of the poem does. I don't know. What I wanted here was to push this, the narrative kind of this first. Like, keep telling the story of the circus. Instead of, if nothing exists as a conscious twist, what's relative nonsense? That, again, that we're getting out away from actually describing what's going on, and we're getting into sort of philosophizing on that. And I think that's where it sort of turns astray. And the poem could continue, describing what's going on and then letting more of it build until we get to turns like these. I think that maybe the problem is the poem is too short, I think, and could be longer. Let's see. Let's move on to another poem. Do some quick critiquing of the weeking. Let me see. What do we have next? Let's go to Robin Delabo. Robin's been commenting a lot. Let's make sure we get to Robin's. This is Ballroom. And I'll put it over here. And that was make sure your name is on here. Robin Delabo. Here we go. Okay, so this is Ballroom by Robin Delabo. I dreamt I wore a red dress. I dreamt we danced a new dance. Dancing was the opposite of work. I woke up and the dance ended. I woke up craving the dance, grieving the death of dance. I am grateful for the years I danced. I am grateful for a dancing dream. Hoping is a red dress. I like that ending a lot. Hoping is a red dress. And I like the beginning a lot too. I dreamt I wore a red dress. I dreamt we danced a new dance. Dancing was the opposite of work. I woke up and that dance ended. I woke up craving dance, grieving the death of dance. I wonder if, this reminds me of a poem we published by Janice Soderling that repeated these short sentences. Let me pull it up really quick. And a couple by Janice. It'll take a second. Yeah, this is real men don't take no shit from nobody. And I wonder if it could continue. I just wanted to show this because of the way you could play with the expectation of these short, blunt statements. There's a way you can play with the expectation there and continue it using that I dreamt I wore a red dress, that type of really quick bam, bam, bam kind of thing. And this is real men don't take no shit from nobody. Let's look at this really quick. This is Janice Soderling. Real men don't take no shit from nobody. White man, black man, yellow man, grief. Doctor, farmer, soldier, chief. Hittin', spittin', cussin' hard. Bury their wives in the cold graveyard. So here, see, you sort of set up an expectation with these lines, with a repetition, and then you sort of play with it using rhyme a little bit, and then sort of expand as you go into more detail in the poem. And I was wondering, just reading this, if you could do something similar. So, I dreamt I wore a red dress. I dreamt we danced a new dance. So if you continued with this kind of these kind of statements, I woke up and the dance ended. See, so this is more. I woke up and that dance ended. I woke up craving dance. Like we want to get off dance a little bit, and I wonder if you could play with rhyme too, though, and stretch that out a little bit, because I really like where it goes. I like where it starts and where it goes. And the question is really for this one, how to get from there to there. So let me see what people are saying about Ballroom. I like the title too, I should say. Ballroom is it's a simple title, but it sets you in a place, and I don't know, it feels right for this poem. So I think that works. Let me see what everybody else is saying about this one. James Casilla says, I would consider repeating the red dress instead of the dance. And yeah, let's see. And Caitlin Bucksbaum says, I'd like to see the word danced used in more and different contexts. Yeah, that's what I was trying to get at. I'm not doing a very good job of explaining it. But that's what I was getting at there, is that it feels like we set up a really interesting, we're kind of engaged in the poem here with the simplicity of these details, but then making the, playing with the sound of it, I don't know, pulling in rhymes would be really good here. And using dance in different contexts too, like Caitlin says. So that's kind of what I was thinking about. Okay. Let's see. Okay, let me do just one more. Hey, Karen Harvey from Wales. Dark, wet, and windy out there. Glad you could join us. So we're doing it like a lightning round of extra poems because we had a very short poem to go over today. If you came in late, that's what we're doing right now. And let me look at. God, oh wow, we have so many people who sent them in. Maybe this wasn't a good idea to offer this because I think I have there's like 20 plus poems here. Let me look at. Look at this quick one by Fran Smith. This is interesting. The sum of all evil, unrighteousness with God. This is by Fran Smith. Let me show this one really quick. We'll see what we think about this. Here we go. Another very, very short poem. The sum of all evil, unrighteousness with God. When 1 + 1 do not make 2, and 2 + 2 do not make 4. When 144,000 becomes 666, then we know the sum of all evil. Interesting. Becomes 666. I wonder what the 144 is. Interesting. I think I need some help decoding this. What is the significance of that number? 144,000. And again, with a short poem like this, getting some sort of play with the words is always really helpful. That's what I was trying to talk about with the ballroom poem. And if you can sort of get a little bit of a rhyme in here, or something sort of surprising like that, just a little bit of wordplay, it always makes a short poem really fun. So I wondered about that too. But does anybody know what 144,000 is? That would be 100, it's 120 squared, is that? No, I don't know. Let's see. Caitlin Buxton says the number who will get into heaven in some stories. Interesting. Thanks, Caitlin. I hadn't heard that before. That's not very many people. Yeah, I was thinking, so Mary Dean Cutter says COVID deaths, and I was thinking about that too. Sherry Puff says there's a religious group that believes that this 144,000 number is the number of people who will be allowed into heaven. Yeah, interesting. So that number becomes 666. We know the sum of all evil. It's kind of clever at the end. I kind of like that ending. Now let's look at another quick poem. Let's look at one by Mary Jean Carter's been commenting a lot. Let's do a Mary Jean Carter poem. I'll open this up here. In 1 second. Okay, so this is Mary Jean Carter. I'll zoom in a little bit. This is Ginsberg up to his same old tricks again. My eyes try, can't avert the red spine book of the sale table. Finally, I succumb to the cosmic pull. Check it out. My fingers magnetize, pick it up. Allen Ginsberg's biography. Updated since his death. Jewish, gay, Buddhist. His ghost travels widely, so I hear. He's fond of poets, bookstores. I feel his spirit near, leaving the New Age bookstore to read about another queer, like me. Search for a teacher, they will appear. Interesting. I love the ending. Is that a quote? Is that like a famous expression by somebody? I don't know. It sounds familiar, but it sounds very wise. And I think it's a good way to end the poem. I also like this little rhyme here too, with the near and the here, which they're internally placed, so you don't really they don't jump out at you, but it's a nice echo in the background. Let's look at from the top. So Ginsberg up to his same old tricks again. My eyes can't avert the red spine book on the sal table. So my eyes can't avert. It's a sort of a clunky way to say this section. So I wonder if you could dive in more and, just get right to it. I'm not sure. I'm trying to think of an expression you could use or a phrase. But my eyes can't avert. Is just a lot of syllables to get through that meaning. And I wonder if you just stick to the red spine book. Finally, I succumb to the cosmic pull. Check it out. I don't think that this part is necessary. Because we get, so if we just delete that, my fingers magnetize, pick it up. So if we stuck to the red spine book, if we just sort of focused on describing the book, and then we get to my fingers magnetize, pick it up, that includes, what was there before. Oops, I don't know what I was doing there. But that includes what was there before. And so that's a more direct way to say it. Allen Ginsberg's biography, updated since his death. Jewish, gay, Buddhist, his ghost travels widely, so I hear. He's fond of poets, bookstores. I feel his spirit near. Leave the New Age bookstore to read about another queer, that rhyme, it plays out nicely too. Like me. And I wonder if, I think this is actually a good ending too. Oops, what am I doing? This is a good ending too. Another queer like me, because of the way, there's a really cool way that rhyme moves through, and then you push past it to get to like me, which is the point of the whole poem. And sort of there's a nice click at the end of there. So I think that's an ending that works. So what if this was the title, and then this was the ending, and then you can just move this. The title now is the reads into the poem, but you could make this the title, and then I think this is a better ending actually. Let me see what people are saying about this one. Carlton Johnson says, from Bible to Zen, great techniques, or great critiques. Yeah, thanks, Carlton. Sherry Pop says the internal rhyme is nice. The last two lines are a Zen proverb. Okay, so I was wondering about that. It sounded like it was. There's a really interesting thing that happens a lot, where when there's a great line, it's really hard to tell, for me anyway, if I've heard it before or not. There are a lot of things that, like, wow, if that's not a famous expression, then it should be. And sometimes they are, and sometimes they should be. So it's hard to tell which one's which. So I think this would work, especially knowing that it's a Zen proverb, as someone said in the comments. I think that would make a better title, and put the ending, make the ending the like me, which I liked. I think that's a good ending. Okay, well, let's do one more. We'll do one last poem, because this is kind of fun to just do a lightning round. Hopefully everybody, people are still tuned in, so obviously you're having fun like I am too. Let us do, Lisa Allison's been commenting a lot too. Let's do Lisa Allison's poem. And here we go. This is Yellow Dress by Lisa Allison. Here. Yellow Dress, another short one. We're doing some short lightning critiques here today on the Critique of the Week. Here we go. This is a Yellow Dress. I cross a tight bridge that resembles Venice, and remember the canal where you touched my fluttering yellow dress. Your laughter caught me off guard, and you said, do I hold down your dress or let it live? I examined the sky and decided this was a good day to marry you. Oh, I love that ending. That's a really nice, unexpected, which is what makes that work. I didn't see that coming at all. So Yellow Dress. It's another sort of like ballroom. It's a title that's really simple, but I think works to you just focus our attention. I cross a tight bridge that resembles Venice, and remember the canal where you touched my fluttering yellow dress. So I think fluttering could have a maybe more interesting word. That's one of those sort of adjectives that, I don't know, are sort of overused or something like that. And I wonder, maybe using a metaphor, to make that, because the yellow dress here is so important to the poem. To make it really stand out, like think of some way you could say that in a unique metaphor kind of way, because that's what makes a certain image very sticky in a poem, is to have some new way of seeing it. And the only, there's really not a new way of seeing that. And it's so important that it would be nice to have a new way. Your laughter caught me off guard, and you said, do I hold down your dress or let it live? And I like that too. I like or let it live. That's really nice. I examined the sky and decided this was a good day to marry you. And again, like I said, that's surprising, and it's a nice turn in the poem. A lot of times we talk about the ways poems have to go somewhere, or find a door and go through it, or something like that. And that's a great example of where you go from one plane of understanding to like another level when it gets to be this was a good day to marry you. So that's a really nice poem. I think the only thing I would do with this one is find a better, more interesting way to say this fluttering yellow dress. Maybe somebody has some suggestions in the comments, but let's see what everybody else is saying. Let's see. Lisa Allison's title is a placeholder. I thought the title was fine. I liked it, actually. Let's see. Red dress, yellow dress, says Robin Delabo. Yeah, we have some colored dresses for sure. Carlton Johnson says, nice ending, though I would redo words like examined and decided. And sky, too. I wonder, similar to the dress, it's not as important an issue as the description of the dress is to this poem, because it's called Yellow Dress, and it's really a central image. But I examined the sky, that was a good point, and decided... there's a way you could do this more interesting, in a more interesting way. Like the sky is sort of very plain, and then deciding and examining it, all those are sort of flat. So this is part. I guess there's two places you could spruce up the poem, because I think this works really well. And I don't know why I'm coloring. I don't mean to color. I thought the second stanza works really well, and this works well too. They're very simple, tight images. And but maybe this is a place that could be spruced up as well, and just describe it in an interesting way, similar to the yellow dress. We have to describe in a little bit of a unique way. But I love the ending. This was a good day to marry you. It's such a nice surprise. Let's see. Windblown, says Mark A. Grenier. The word examine seems off tonally. Yeah, I agree too. Robin Delabo says, slightly confused by tenses, starts in present, then past, and the poets remember. But then in the final stanza, unclear whether that's happening in the past, present, or both, sort of implied. I think it's, so my reading of this poem is that we had the, I cross the bridge now, and it reminds me of the time. So it was actually in Venice where, this happened, where the poem happened. And so it gets kind of like an anniversary love poem kind of thing, because it's sort of looking back at that. So I examined the sky. That was back then. So we have like the present is when I crossed the crossed the bridge, because the bridge reminds me of the bridge in Venice. And then all this was in the past. And then this was a good day to marry you is the marriage was in the past, but it's recollecting on that. And look at that, how, like, what works about this poem. It's a really simple poem, but the way that it's revealed is what creates sort of tension. So I cross the bridge, and then I'm reminded of this, but we never feel lost, like we're not invited to tell, to know what the story is. Like nothing's opaque or hiding from us. but it's revealed piece by piece until we get like everything by the end. We know what it's completely about. And that's what makes it work, I think, is that step by step we go from here. This reminds me of this. Then there's yellow dress. We know it's significant, but we don't know why. And then we wonder what happens. That there's this: do I hold down your dress or let it live? Kind of similar to that tumbleweed that lives a little more in the wind in that other poem. But we get what's happening, but we don't know the significance, and it reveals itself step by step, and then at the very end, we're told what the significance is, and that makes you feel it a little bit. And so it's a very simple poem, but the way it's laid out works really well. Let's see. Well, let's do one more. I keep saying one more, but this is finally one more. I got to get going back to work on other stuff. But let me see what else we could do. And let's do, I'm trying to have somebody who's let's do, Carlton Johnson was there last. He had a whole thing. Let's do Anna Yin. I saw Anna commenting too earlier. Here, let's, a little short poem by Anna Yin. We'll end up with this. This is Slate Cold. And let me make sure I'm formatting this right too. Yeah, so that's supposed to be an epigram. Okay. So this is like, this is how it's supposed to look, really. Kind of like that. Slight cold. After reading Luafu. The heavy snow of that year swept all the bare mountains during one night. Roads desperately strive, stretching out. At the end, only the vast emptiness, rising, then descending, a nightingale under the moonlight, its shadow longer than my dream. That's a very nice one too. And see how we're just talking about the way a poem reveals itself as building the tension. And this is the same kind of structure. So we can see it in a short poem, we can see this, how it works really clearly. So we have the heavy snow of that year, swept all the bare mountains during one night. Roads desperately strive, reaching out. And I think the weakest part of the poem is this. I think roads desperately striving is a little, a little forced or something. It doesn't feel quite right. It doesn't sort of sit on the page in a way that other things do. That the personification of the road, maybe just the road stretching out, but desperately striving is just feels a little off to me. So it's one place I would maybe make some little edits there. At the end, only the vast emptiness, rising, then descending. So the scene is laying it out. Kind of a lot of times when I'm reading a poem, I imagine if you see somebody getting their tarot deck read, and there's that kind of like slow roll of the one card after another, like building up a story. In these last two poems, you can see that happening. So we get the scene being laid out, rising, then descending. And then a nightingale, which is a surprise. It's like a whole new card. A nightingale under the moonlight. Its shadow longer than my dream. And that ending, the shadow longer than my dream, it's just so surprising and interesting that that makes it really work, like we're never, like the last poem, we're never really out of place. Like we're never like not invited in. But there's a mystery to it. And there's a surprise as the new details are laid out, especially toward the end with a nightingale and the shadow being longer than my dream. And I'm not sure what to make of it, but there's enough detail. And there's enough newness and interestingness. And we get this sense of I don't know, there's a sense of the scene that works well and sort of fills in the gaps for us that we don't have details for. So going back to the very first discussion of public versus private, even though we're not told a lot of the details about like what is this about or what the circumstances might be, this is an example where I think the images show enough detail to keep us engaged, and that we're willing to accept sort of the gaps that we don't have in where to put things, I don't know. So I think this one works. So the thing I would play with this one is just the roads desperately striving. I don't think that's quite right. The other thing I was wondering, the rising and descending too is something similar. It's not as bad as the roads desperately striving, But maybe that could be more interesting. Rising then descending. But I like the structure of it, though. I like the rising, the way that we don't know what's rising and descending, and then we do, a nightingale. So I'm not sure how to play with that, but that might be, there's two things I might play with this. Slight Cold is an interesting title, too, because at first I'm imagining, this sort of barren traveler in the winter. But then I think maybe... because it ends up as a shadow longer than my dream. I wonder if it's maybe a sort of, you're under the weather and you have some crazy dreams kind of feeling, like not really delirious, but your dreams get a little more powerful sometimes when you're have a slight cold. And there's a reason why we call it under the weather too. And I don't know. So I think that's interesting. I think that works pretty well. Okay, well, it's been an hour, and I've had a lot of fun looking through poems really quick. I hope you have too. Thanks to everybody for participating in this. It was just a lot of fun. Let's see. Let me just see if there's any more feedback before I go. Yeah, so everybody likes the ending for this, and yeah. Okay, so I think that's about it. But yeah, thanks everybody who shared a short poem on really short notice, and sorry to everybody who we didn't get to your poems. I wish I had more time. Maybe we should do this more often, where we just have a kind of lightning round and look through some poems really quick every once in a while. But we got through a bunch of them, so sorry to the people we didn't get to. They're just I do have to get back to work, reading submissions and replying to emails, because this is a very busy day for us at Rattle. But anyway, thanks everybody. Let me tell you before we go, of course, the open mic show is going to be Sunday morning at noon Eastern time, as always, for open mic for poems about current events. And there's a lot of events going on, a lot of submissions. One of the reasons that we crashed Submittable server today was I think there's like 250 already, and probably another 100 coming for Poetry Respond. So share your poems on Poetry Respond Live's open mic, Sunday at noon Eastern time. And then next week's guest in the Rattlecast is going to be Jennifer Jean. That's Rattlecast number 76. The prompt for the week was to use dictionary.com's 2 words of the year. The editors chose pandemic, which is sort of an obvious choice. The People's Choice Award was unprecedented, which sort of fits. So the prompt for this week is to write a poem that uses both words. And so it's pretty open-ended. Hopefully, I don't know, using an interesting way that's not just about the pandemic, but uses that as a metaphor or something. Hopefully, that'll be a lot of fun. But we'll do that for the open mic after Jennifer John. But first, we'll talk to Jennifer John in her newest book, Object Lessons. She was interviewed in Rattle number 53, if you want to get a preview of her work ahead of time. I think she's got maybe 3 poems in Rattle already. So go check those out, and we'll see you on Tuesday, January 19th for Rattlecast number 76 with Jennifer Jean. Talk to you then. Have a good rest of your weekend. Goodbye.